Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the L1 show. Today's February 6th, though on day of recording, it is Puxatawny Pete Day to all those who celebrate Groundhog Day. We have an early spring.
To all those, some people don't.
Some people don't. It's very controversial.
I don't observe magical groundhogs.
Sorry.
I'm so out of it, I didn't even realize we weren't recording.
Wait, are we not? We're recording.
We are now.
Yeah, okay.
We weren't a moment ago.
You threw me off because we messed up one take already. So today's government and security news.
Good news is one day we won't have to record because we can just let the AI go back through the archives,
suck out our mind memories.
Yeah, recreate everything, our opinions, and just do it this way.
FCC to declare AI-generated voices and robocalls illegal under existing law, according to Ars Technica. This article is really amazing. I feel like you can get a lot of bingo squares from this article because there's not new laws. It's not anything. It's like companies are doing awful things. They can look. We have existing laws.
It has to do with pre-recorded voice. Yeah. And AI, that's pre-recorded. I mean, you can't really argue against it, I guess. Do you think that some company will be like, no, we're generating the AI on the fly as we're talking to the people? So in some cases, I guess that would be true. But yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants phone calls.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's like, can we just get rid of robocalls in general, AI generated or not? I just don't want them.
Everybody liked the poop in the soup analogy. It's like, no, you have to have a little poop with your soup.
It's like, no, I don't want that though.
Who wants AI-generated random phone calls that just...
Old people who are the biggest victims.
Yeah. Well, they're just lonely.
They just want phone calls. They think that they're people, but they're not talking to people.
They're exploiting crippling loneliness, which probably should be illegal. And there probably is a law on the books that makes that illegal.
It's certainly unethical.
They get the love predators. Now, this we've already covered last week, but there's a little bit of an extra bit of details that has been revealed in terms of, they didn't cover last week how hard they fought. And we're going to have to give a little timing battle here.
Pentagon tried to hide the fact that it bought Americans' data without a warrant. So we reported on this, that this was happening. But then this is a meta article when it's like they pointed out, it's like, oh yeah, they didn't actually want this to come to light. And remember how I said it was like the James Clapper thing all over again, all the way. We don't wittingly spy on Americans.
So what made them come to light? Was it the criticisms and the angry letters written by Senator Wyden? No. They wanted a new NSA director. Congress has to approve that, and he wouldn't do it unless they responded to his letters. When they did, I admitted that it was all true.
And then everyone just said, sucks to suck, and it kept happening.
Yeah,
here we are.
I hate it when this sequence of events happens because up until now, it was like in Schrodinger's, like people like us will point it out and point out the absurdity of it and point out how corrosive it is to trust and that sort of thing. But there's no confirmation. And then when there's confirmation, it's like, oh, we knew that was happening all along. It's like, no, you didn't. Oh my God. Okay.
But even then, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem like there's even a point pointed out anymore. But the U.S. government is going to point out that the where water is still wet, sky is still blue, bears still defecating in the woods, and China still hacking.
The Reuters headline is exclusive. The U.S. disabled a Chinese hacking network targeting critical infrastructure.
This seemed to be a really big story. Like, I saw this everywhere this week, but they didn't release like too terribly many details other than like it started in November and like...
I just heard Ron Howard's voice over us and say, no, they didn't. They dismantled. Well, they got one of them. They didn't get all of them.
And this was basically a botnet. It was the usual cameras and routers and unpatched devices, but that wasn't quite the level of hysteria that they needed. So they needed to ratchet it up a little bit with this statement.
FBI director warns Chinese hackers aim to, quote unquote, wreak havoc on U.S. critical infrastructure. Like, okay, you can read this and it's all fine, but we're going to have another story in the security section on tomorrow, I guess. And it's going to be talking about the Ivanti hack. And again, it's a little different this time. It's actually going to be really interesting. But you have to look at the components that went into that hack. And it's not really like technological leadership. It's not like the Chinese have this magic stuff. They can just buy their way in a lot of cases.
USA.
Yeah, I mean, if a Chinese company comes to a small American security startup and says, I have millions of dollars, I would like to buy your product and analyze it, most of the time they say, oh, yeah, sounds good.
All right, yeah, I'll take that money.
They are maybe trying to do a little something about that with the trade war, but I don't know if it's working.
Uncle Sam designates more Chinese tech slingers as military collaborators.
YMTC is probably the big one, the memory company. But yeah, more and more rules about who can and cannot do business with China. And artificial intelligence is more and more turning into an ordinance argument, right? Like, oh, it's too dangerous. It is just too dangerous to give this to the common man. It must be regulated, and here's the first baby step toward that.
AI companies will need to start reporting their safety tests to the U.S. government.
Now, a company like OpenAI might respond with safety tests.
Yeah.
So
Ethics, I don't.
But good news, they've got it. They're already working around that because the government is going to mandate how you safety test your AIs coming soon. Once they've figured that out, because clearly nobody in the government can do that. So look forward to that. That'll probably be overwhelmingly used against open sourced and free models, while the big players will be allowed to collude with the government, just like they're doing now with all of our data. And we have the social media has been a real low simmer. I'd say past 6 months or so.
There hasn't been a lot of I think there's 3 this week.
Very few to pick from. It's not AI has taken all of their thunder, but one man is still fighting the good fight.
Lindsey Graham promises to try to repeal Section 230 every week. This is also an amazing tech dirt because I've never seen tech dirt just scroll down. Yeah. Oh, right there. Yeah. The one sentence right there. It's just like, yep. Couldn't have said it better myself.
It's just a cluster blank.
You can't just point to the screen and expect me to know what sentence you're talking about.
The cluster blank of.
Krista knew.
Yeah.
I
can actually read it from here.
No, it's right above that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's hard to mistake that word for anything else, even at this distance.
Yeah. They point out that his arguments are absolutely insane. And what he wants is to silence people who are saying bad things about him,
I think
mostly.
What he wants is a distraction so we don't actually get anything done. He is acting in what we call bad faith.
And I think to control the social media companies, that's really the only way that the legacy media can have any sort of control. And Lindsey Graham is certainly a legacy media kind of guy. And, oh boy, how many times have we seen this come back from the dead? It's like Jason Voorhees. They name it something different and bring it back out year after year after year.
Microsoft and X throw their weight behind KOSA, the Kids Online Safety Act, controversial bill for kids' online safety. Now, they actually had a dog and pony show with Mark Zuckerberg, which we'll talk about. And they were trying to get all these people, they were trying to do the gotcha moment. And it was all just a dog and pony show to try to get them to endorse the Kids Online Safety Act, and none of them were like, this is a dog and pony show. This is terrible.
I saw one quote where they were like, we'll support it with changes, which is let us redraft that entire law.
Yeah.
I thought I had those stories next to each other, but I failed.
Oh.
It's fine.
Instead, let's talk about that whole thing about, fake robocalls. Maybe there was some catalyst that prompted action on that from the FCC, perhaps?
Researchers say that the deepfake Biden robocall was likely made with tools from AI startup ElevenLabs. Oops.
So there was a Biden robocall. It was encouraging people not to vote in the primary. And, of course, he was unopposed, so I'm not sure
who that benefits.
Why that would be. And so they've decided to track it down. They found that it was this one company, and that account has been, they think they found the account, and it's been suspended.
That's such a slap on the wrist to just have your account suspended for
Well, I'm sure they
telling people not to vote.
They probably turned the data over to the Secret Service. There's probably going to be more to that. We'll find out. And open secrets. As we learned last week through the mother of all breaches, the common man can probably get a hold of similar data to what the spy agencies have at this point. Because it's just simply all out there. No one can protect it.
There's so much data, even the spies are struggling to find secrets. Because everything is not a secret if you know where to dig.
Privacy through no privacy?
This story talks about how it's easy to just go online and buy your own satellite photography. It's like, I would like to task a satellite with taking a high-resolution picture of this part of the Earth now.
Well, they talked about, too, and I remember I was doing this, too, when they were talking about, the Russian troop buildup on the border of Ukraine. You could see it on like Google Maps, like all the traffic backed up, and it was like, oh, you could literally watch it in real time.
That one satellite company really made their bones
Yeah.
during all that. That was cool. But as you pointed out earlier, it's not limited to American citizens. Like
Anybody
Xi
can.
Jinping could buy all that stuff
Yeah.
too. So, yeah, maybe no privacy is the future. And maybe no more prime delivery is the future, because I do not know how they could survive this given the state of their inventories.
Amazon could be held responsible for third-party products. Now, they're talking about drugs, but also things other than drugs.
It wouldn't stop at drugs.
Yeah.
Is that story, the story about the pill casings, is that in this section?
No, that's later in
Okay.
another thing. This story, believe it or not, those are about the same sequence of events, but they cover two different aspects of it completely differently. Basically, it's like Amazon is selling things that are dangerous and things that, like, oh, I've got some counterfeit aspirin.
Now, we all know that big companies can do nothing to protect your data. Well, they could, but even if they try, I don't know if they would succeed. But how much of it is your responsibility? How much of it is theirs?
New York Attorney General sues Citibank for failing to protect customers from hackers and scammers. Yes.
They pointed out some numbers which were pretty crazy. They also pointed out that Citibank, when you do get scammed and go to them for help, the first thing they do is have you sign some sort of arbitration.
Oh.
And so it's like, oh, yes, we will help you. Just sign this paperwork. And as soon as they get that signature, they're done. They don't care at all. They don't get anybody's money back. They've covered their asses, and they move on.
I've heard I think it's Citibank, I've heard a lot of horror stories about. Though it's true of just about every bank anymore. Like, they all have horror stories when you look them up online.
Only the local and regional banks are maybe okay.
Did you guys see that big jobs number this morning?
the
Which one?
Line go down number?
No, line went up.
Oh.
Line went up in a way that beggars belief.
I did not see that.
Here's the thing, though. When you drill down into the numbers, it turns out for the year of 2024, full-time jobs, line did go down.
I think I put a story about that in business.
Oh.
It might have been a late ad.
I might have missed it. I thought I already
I
saw
added it like late Thursday night.
It was really hot. The audience was like super into the whole like jobs numbers thing, but it was a thing because
There was no payroll number Thursday night.
yeah.
But
That's
it was
weird.
but it was a different story. It was like talking about how like everyone was losing jobs. Like the percentage was way down.
Well, no, percentage of jobs went up. So everybody lost full-time jobs. Actually, it wasn't a huge loss, but like full-time jobs went down. Part-time jobs doubled.
Yeah.
So everybody's
Doing multiple gigs.
Yeah, they're just trying to survive, which is why this story might affect a lot of you since you're now just slaving away at multiple jobs.
New York City wants to create a first of its kind department to regulate app-based delivery. So you're going to use the gig economy. You're going to be partially employed by a bunch of different apps. New York City wants a piece of that.
Now, what exactly do they want to do? Well, they haven't pointed out everything, but one amazing little detail that they had in this article is that they already use GPS on all of their little gig drivers to see where they are and like plan the routes. And they're like, okay, this person's here. They can pick this up. New York wants that data because the state needs to track you while you're biking.
Is it that big of a traffic increase? Maybe it is, but
They
I
do.
can't imagine.
Apparently they use the sidewalks, which is not good.
Instead of the city investing in bike lanes, let's just track everybody instead.
And here's the time of week when we flip a coin to try to decide, is this a hit piece or is he just really that much of a monster? I have no idea at this point.
Reuters, Tesla sued by California counties over hazardous waste. So I tried to dig into this. I think this one is more on the side of hit piece than actual serious things, but I could be wrong. Because like hazardous waste, cadmium in the water table, that's the thing you deal with batteries and metal plating and all this other kind of stuff. That's very serious. That's very bad. This seems like they had a pile of lead acid batteries in the corner they were trying to figure out what to do with.
Well, they claim he used traditional waste disposal and someone went behind him and was like, no, this is not.
You can't just throw this in the regular trash.
Now, it could be that Gavin Newsom put out a task force and that every other company is also doing that in California, but that one in particular they went after, who knows?
No, we can't throw away AA batteries in the office waste. It's just like,
At the same time, I could totally see Elon Musk, like, somebody coming to him. It's like, hey, listen, boss, we got all this stuff. We need to get like a special truck to come in. And he's like, just throw it away.
Yeah. So my mom used to work in the trash industry. She was a trashy lady, and there were actually very particular rules about what kind of dumpsters they could set where.
Especially with those lithium batteries, because
Yeah.
they'll just like burst the whole landfill into flames.
Yeah.
They burn hot enough that they can ignite the whole thing, which is crazy. And Mr. Newsom and his cronies are also responsible for this madness, which is just just stamping out the final coals of our liberty.
California bill calls for tech to make a new car's unable to speed.
I feel like we made a joke about this kind of thing like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And here it is.
Tell me,
Moving
Mr.
fast.
Anderson, what good is a phone call if you cannot speak?
I have no mouth and I must scream.
Yeah.
10 miles an hour over, and it will automatically cut off if they get their way.
See, I was always told it was. So does that mean we can speed 10 miles no matter
No,
what? Because
no.
the rule I always heard was 5 you're fine, 10 you're mine.
No, that's not true.
They did say that there is a way to override it, but
It's
and-
only you had to like register to have that.
Well,
done.
there was no details on that.
yeah. It was like, oh, don't worry, we'll add an override, and then of course emergency vehicles won't have it, and also old vehicles.
Which is going to make my car really loud.
This is the one I was thinking of earlier.
Oh, right. Yeah.
This is eBay.
This is ridiculous because that's like, you can use these for so many other reasons, right?
Yeah, I was thinking that exact thing. I was like, what if you're making like your own herbal supplement?
Much like artificial intelligence, this basically tells you, hey, only government approved businesses should be able to make pills. That's what they're saying here, right?
eBay to pay $59 million settlement over sales of pill making tools. I don't
wanted
know.
to make an echinacea supplement. No.
That probably sounds weird to people that haven't ever considered that. It's like, oh yes, my home pill making kit. But consider also just digital scales.
Well, yeah, like, but for this channel though, like in terms of niche hobby content, I think most people here probably understand. Sometimes you have weird tools.
I've never felt the need to press some pills, but
Well, who doesn't have weird things in their house though that are related to some little side hobby? that they
certainly
do?
not me.
Please don't come to my house and find all my weird side hobby items.
First, they came for the hobby.
Pill press.
I don't know.
And I did not speak, 'cause
Vitamin
I-
supplement pill, and then pretty soon they're coming for the ammo reloaders.
Now we have to beg the question, what's worse? What should garner more outrage? Thirsty posts on TikTok or sniffing children?
Why not both?
Presidential candidate RFK Jr. blames junior staffer for comment to OnlyFans model.
The bar is in hell. So
So I don't know if I had the JavaScript turned off. No, they don't actually have. I think it's been deleted. But there was a TikTok post from a hot young TikTok girl, and one of the accounts associated with RFK said "wow," and I think there were some emojis. His explanation is that they recycled one of his staffers' TikTok accounts because he did not have a TikTok account, and that was from before they were using it for that. But that seems like a weird.
why would you not just register?
Yeah. it's a
Like
weird
it
excuse.
takes 5 seconds to register a new one.
I would respect him more if he. Maybe that's true, but if it weren't true, I would respect him more if he was just like, because she was hot. Give that girl some credit. And isn't it weird when somebody crosses the intelligence agencies in a big way and embarrasses them and gives them a hard time, they almost inevitably are interested in CSAM. It's just, I don't know, correlation is not causation, I guess, but it's just a trend.
Ex-CIA software engineer sentenced to 40 years for giving secrets to WikiLeaks and also for having stuff that they shouldn't have, which the prosecution admitted was under 3 layers of password protection. Weird.
That does guarantee you that he will have the worst possible time in prison. I mean, if it's true, maybe he deserves it, but it just seems to pop up a lot.
It does seem like they use that offensively and not like...
And there was remember the one malware with the function names?
Yeah.
Well, the big story last week, of course, was Apple. And the big thing about that story was that Apple basically just like pirouetted around the whole thing. And brazenly so.
The Reuters says that Apple faces strong action if Apple Store changes fall short, EU's Breton says. Well, I've got some news for you. Not only are they going to fall short, it's going to be the most amazing malicious compliance thing you've ever seen.
We're going to write them a strongly worded letter.
Yeah. Ooh, interesting to see, because I think they are definitely in violation of that. Apple, on the other hand, is trying to regain control of the old walled garden, and they're using the old argument of, if we are regulated, then we can't protect you, which is weird because that's what the government argues as well. Although I might agree with them in this case, because the UK is going pretty far.
Apple says the UK could, quote unquote, secretly veto global privacy tools. Okay.
So the government, in the new, what do they call that thing? That new bill?
Investigatory Powers Act.
So the government would have veto rights on software updates. So if Apple decided to do the whole, hey, we're not allowing third-party cookies thing, and the UK government was lobbied by powerful businesses, imagine that. They could just be like, nah.
What this is the exploits where there's like a problem with a font update or something like that, without saying it, without Apple explicitly giving the government a backdoor into the software, they prevent Apple from updating the software to close the back door. That's what this is about. But they don't have to identify to Apple what the back door is, but Apple can infer that the weakness that is being used to take control of the phones remotely is something related, something that was fixed in that update that they don't want to be fixed.
Well, it's an important point you kind of glossed over there. The whole thing's secret.
Yeah.
No one gets to know why or how. They just simply say, no, you can't post this update.
And we know it's like, oh, that sounds really far-fetched. That's literally what was happening with journalists and spying and foreign powers already on the iPhone. Apple was powerless to stop it.
And if you hear all this news and you get that creeping dread that we all have, and the one thing that brings you some calm just for a few moments is
some nicotine,
some beautiful nicotine, well, in the UK, it's going to taste worse going forward.
The UK is going to ban disposable vapes in a plan to combat use by children. You got a license for that because it's not disposable, That's what's coming.
I mean, technically you have to do that here in the U.S., right? Like you have to be 18. But
Well, they're also going after the flavored ones because flavored.
I guess they did that here too.
Because as an adult, I can't enjoy some strawberry flavored vapes
No. Well, it's with cigarettes. They used to do flavored cigarettes. You can't do that anymore.
and menthol.
Yeah.
London also has their famous low emissions thing where like literally just driving into the city in the wrong car can rack up a ton of fines.
See, I read this story and I was like, what the hell? Like, I was so, American brain can't compute.
We'll see ULEZ, but it was a huge story over there.
Yeah. I understood after I read it, but the concept was so foreign to me.
The Guardian has weird headlines sometimes.
Yeah.
They're not great at that for the international audience. But the thing about it is, if you are from a different EU country and you drive into London, they are going to send you a fine through the mail. But how did they get your information? Because all they have is a license plate. You're not registered in the UK, and there's no connection between the two, right?
Hundreds of thousands of EU citizens, quote unquote, wrongly fined for driving in London's ultra low emission zone. Huh.
The ULEZ.
That's weird. Is this a positive result of Brexit?
Turns out that all the EU watchdogs and stuff that had that information were just like, yeah, sure, here you go.
Oh, that's
Send
so
out
weird.
the fines, which is totally against all those privacy acts. Remember all those privacy acts?
It's going to be weird when all those privacy acts only apply to corporations and not the EU itself.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think that we're communicating on private channels, and they accidentally reveal that there's nothing that's private about it.
British man acquitted over London, Spain flight bomb hoax, according to the BBC headline. This is such a benign headline, you would almost not notice it. But there's a darkness in this story. And in fact, it is a Vanta Black darkness.
A pit.
Was it Telegram?
Snapchat.
Oh, right, Snapchat. So Snapchat supposedly is end-to-end, right?
Yeah.
And there's no one listening. And like this guy was in a private channel with his friends.
And that's the only place it was.
So as he was getting on the plane, he was like, I'm going to go blow up the plane, like as a fun joke. In their little private world where no one else could see it. And before he got on the plane, the authorities knew about it and were on to him.
Wow.
they scrambled jets while they were in the air to escort the plane to land.
That's real time.
Yeah. Again, just like the story that we started with, where it's like, oh, that's all conspiracy theory. That's not proven. Here it is.
And of course, who covered this?
Who hasn't had the moment, though, when you're going through like security? It's like, do I accidentally have a gun in my bag? And soon they're going to hear that thought.
You don't even own a gun.
Well, my husband does. I don't.
But the BBC did kind of tentatively ask the question. It's like, well, how did this happen? There was no concrete response to that.
They said that, we would have to get evidence from, one of the people involved, or like who scrambled them, or the police, and they're not willing to give that evidence. So yeah, all of those systems are being scanned. Literally nothing is private.
And I didn't think it was as far as real time.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be real time either, but that's impressive. I mean, in a horrible sort of way,
Yeah.
but.
And governments of the world continue to reap the benefits of Bitcoin inflation. Because they make these busts, it takes years and years to roll through the courts, and by the time they can seize them...
Authorities secured $2 billion in Bitcoin from pirate site operators. They actually shut down in 2013, but they just had a bunch of leftover coins, and it was like, hey, let's try to do this. Let's try to do something with these coins. It's been 10 years. Maybe no one is paying attention now. They were still paying attention. That's amazing.
Nice little chunk of change. I'm sure they'll use that for the good of their people. And ChatGPT, we all know, is a little bit privacy invasive, and it's reporting back some of the things you talk to it about. Italy is not about it.
OpenAI's ChatGPT breaches privacy rules, says Italian watchdog. It's like, no, your conversation must be private. It's you.
See, I read that headline and was just like, yeah, of course. Isn't that true of everything we use now?
Well, Italy in particular was one of those countries, if you remember, who wouldn't let it happen. Mm-hmm. And they were like, and ChatGPT was like, our OpenAI was like, we'll make these changes and everything.
It'll be totally okay.
And now they're saying like, you're not doing what you said.
Based on the flight case, doesn't that also mean that Snapchat is under, like, it's not private? It's demonstrably not private.
That's a good point.
Wasn't that Spain and the UK though?
The guy in the flight thing, he was also found not guilty. The judge looked at this and was like,
this is clearly someone making a joke.
Yeah, this is not only that, but this is a private community. They had no reason to think, come on. Because they wanted to pay €92,000.
They wanted to pay for the jets. Yeah, which is insane. Instead, the taxpayer will pay for that.
We got him.
Good job, boys. Let's go home. You didn't do anything.
Now, I guarantee you, if they were speaking in code, or just if it wasn't just direct words, they never would have. They could go through the messages after the fact and be like, oh, that's what they were talking about. But it would never know. It would never know.
So, pro terrorist tip.
Yeah, it's like, let's go make the souffle. It's like, yes, I'm fine. My whole life has been all about making the souffle.
Well, we're going to iterate toward, like, the AI will try to interpret those little things.
Yeah.
And then people who are literally making a souffle will get flashbanged in the face and beaten.
So it'll be like in Boston when people were trying to buy pressure cookers after that marathon thing.
Oh. That's a vintage reference.
Well, there was that guy that did the Google search that just was unlucky. Like, he happened to look for pressure cookers on Google, and it was just like...
There's a great story. One of those guys' wives, one of the bombers, she is no longer... It's like she's been erased from existence. You cannot find her. And I guess it was like maybe like witness protection or something.
Probably.
But like she is just literally gone from the earth. No one knows where she is.
She probably changed. I mean, would you want to be known after that? I don't like to be perceived normally.
What if she started an OnlyFans? The bomb.
Oh.
Japan, they are known for being pretty technologically advanced. I mean, they got those amazing trains. They got a lot of cool stuff. The people seem to be very tech savvy, but in the leadership... Remember the guy?
Was he like his 90s or his 80s? He was very old.
He was the AI czar, right?
Yeah.
And he
didn't even have an email, I think.
Didn't know how to use email, and I think maybe some of that is bleeding into this.
Japan will no longer require floppy disks for submitting some official documents.
Where do you even get floppy disks now?
We've covered this before. It was like, they're thinking about making a change. They're making the change.
It only took them years to get there.
Yeah, I mean, floppy disks haven't really been a thing for about 20 years.
And China is behind on the AI race, and they are trying to catch up. It seems like the government is maybe relaxing some of that control because of their laggard ways.
China approves over 40 AI models for public use in the past 6 months. Also, them A100 GPUs or A800 GPUs specifically for the Chinese market. Ooh, they're flowing. It's like an A100. It's an A100 Lite.
And we see headline after headline as Russia and Ukraine just trade cyber attacks at this point.
Mass blackout takes Russian internet offline.
This was Tuesday.
This is really what has got our people worked up because they're looking at this and they're like, oh, we didn't know they could do that. Kind of like the whole Hughes, or no, it wasn't Hughes, it was Viasat. The whole Viasat hack. It's like, oh, we didn't realize that. I mean, we knew they were in there, but we didn't realize that they were in there to that extent. Oops.
Had they come back? Like they didn't. This article didn't really like say a whole lot. It was just like
Oh.
Tuesday night.
No, it was DNS related, so
Oh.
they once they fixed it, it had to propagate back out. So it did eventually start working. Those are the .ru and .something else domains. What is that?
Symbols,
We don't have that on our keyboards.
Cyrillic.
And here we have some, well, you mentioned this earlier, the Ivanti attack.
The Ivanti patches 2 0 days under attack but finds another. Listen, if you're still, like, you got to just go unplug the hardware. Like, you got Ivanti hardware, you just got to go unplug it.
Set fire to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's so bad that the DOD issued an emergency bulletin that was like, just go to the rack and just rip it out. Don't care if you're offline, or rip it out. That's bad. That's really bad. And this is an American company. So that tells you the extent to which our infrastructure is compromised. But I got to say hats off, because this was the same kind of compromise that we saw with SolarWinds and the OPM hack before that. So we're changing our response. Like with the OPM hacks, we know they're in there. What are they going to do? It was real bad. SolarWinds, what are they going to do? Real bad. This time they're like, yeah, let's just turn that off. Let's make this public. Let's try to deal with it. So at least it's probably still a case of fixing the barn door after the horses have already escaped and become maimed. But at least there was,
Is that learning from past events, or is that panic because they're anticipating future events?
Well, the thing here was they found this exploit looking into the other exploits.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like a snowballing. They were trying to repair those barn doors and they just fell off.
See, that's the worst thing in the world too, when you're working on a problem like that. And it's like, okay, I just need to fix this one little tiny bug. And then you like go to patch it and it's like, oh no, there's like a whole structural problem underneath it.
So it is nice to see that our own internal people are not as, the naivete is lifting, but this is still not great that they're in this deep.
But it's not just the government that's terrible at that kind of thing. And it's not just the major appliance companies. The crypto world is also suffering a bit of an OPSEC failure.
Binance code and internal passwords exposed on GitHub for months. Oops.
That's just free money if you can find it. They say they don't know that it was ever exploited, but how is the same entity that's constantly monitoring Snap not picking up on that? Maybe we could focus that laser elsewhere.
Well, that was the thing that drove me insane about the OPM hack and SolarWinds is like people knew and they escalated it, but it was not we should maybe alert those companies or work with them, or like, we don't want to spook the people that are in, but at the same time, we really need to do what we can to protect American assets. We did not do that because we are dumb.
You know who else didn't do that?
How a mistakenly published password exposed Mercedes-Benz source code. Oops. Turns out everything you need to decrypt the stuff right there.
How convenient.
That's really amazing. But also, like, if you're looking at this, you're looking around and like you're trying to, like, say this was hacked by a Chinese company or whatever. You're looking at this and it's like, well, these companies are selling us products. Like, is it our responsibility to secure them?
Well, the one thing about these hacks is that you get the big headline, but that's rarely the end of it. There's a lot of trickle over time as more and more details emerge. At this point, they're just preparing us for it.
More companies expected to disclose that they were compromised by Russian intelligence. Not just Microsoft. Fun times.
And it is obviously going to get harder and harder online to tell who's real and who's not. And at this point, mostly not, I think.
Yeah. Cisco's head of security thinks that we're headed into an AI phishing nightmare. Yes, the aforementioned calls to the elderly. If you had a chat bot right now that could just call an old person and talk them out of a credit card, it's going to be real bad.
The dead internet theory was interesting to me even like 2 or 3 years ago, and it just becomes more and more compelling.
Oh, yeah, the number of AI, the amount of AI-generated content out there is shocking.
Just think about the number of websites you visit every day and how small it is.
Yeah.
Man, it's just insane. There's so much of it. It's kind of like space. There's so much of it, but we never experience it. We're just here in our little pocket. We have no idea what's going on out there, but it's all bad.
It's mostly radiation. Mostly we don't...
It's empty and radiation. It's like Starfield.
The chemical radiation, the radiation affecting the chemicals in our brain, it would be bad.
Now, we have a great history of really creative ways to deploy malware. I'd say my number one is still Britney Spears tweets. Or was it Instagram?
Yeah. She has an Instagram, I think. I don't know if she has a Twitter.
But that kind of thing was going hot and heavy. Usually it was social media. These guys have something a little more clever.
Ars Technica itself used a malware campaign with never-before-seen obfuscation. So what they would do is create a user account and a profile and upload it to Ars Technica. But in the URL for the image of the pizza, there's not a malicious payload or anything like that here, but the URL for the pizza contains a UU encoded instruction to the malware. So the malware knew to look at Ars Technica. Ars Technica is a website that is not likely to be blocked or taken down or altered in any way. And so this was used as part of the command and control system for the bots, and it would totally fly under the radar. And in fact, Ars Technica is whitelisted in a lot of website blacklists, and it's an American website. It's not like you're getting weird traffic somewhere. So there's a lot of positives for doing this kind of an attack.
That's so sad too, because I think Ars Technica is one of the only sites that still has a comment section.
It wasn't even that Ars Technica did anything wrong, and this was just this kind of thing. It would unless you knew exactly where to look, you'd never notice it.
I bet they're going to have a file name character limit going further. And like I was talking about, the trickle effect, when did the Okta attack happen?
Like a year ago. And
we're still trickling.
Cloudflare hacked by suspected state-sponsored threat actor. How? Okta. They also announced 7% layoffs today. Is it more job numbers? We got a lot of layoffs today.
Yeah, that'll be later this week.
More than last week, which is incredible. Terrifying. And if you are going to be flying around, not only do you have to worry about the bolts coming off.
And the horrible bathroom situations.
Oh, yeah, people crapping on you in the aisles. But now also, because we are wholly dependent on new technology, and apparently we've ripped out all the old stuff, your plane just might drop out of the sky.
GPS interference, now a major flight safety concern for the airline industry. Well, it's time for us to get a patent on the old laser GPS device. So if you're an airplane, you can see space and the sky, and so you can just use lasers to find where you are. It's hard to interfere with a laser unless you block it.
Well, you should tune in tomorrow if you're feeling happy, because the collapse section will strip that right off of you.
That was a brutal section to read late last night.
There's a lot of it this week.
Anyway, we'll see you then. Bye!